Hi, I'm Chris James, and you're watching The Healthy Alternative. Today, we're going to be interviewing another member from the group. As you can clearly see, she's a woman. So I've been knocking out these interviews with women. So I hope you guys are enjoying them. Her name is Stephanie. We're going to get to know her a little bit today. Some of the things she's gone through in the past, some of the victories she's seen with fasting and other things that she's tried, as well as, where she wants to go in the future. So stay tuned. We're missing a piece of the puzzle. You start getting healthy and you just become a better person.
We need to start focusing more on the individual.
All right, Stephanie. So it's been good. We talked a little bit off camera, but I wanted to give the group and YouTube a chance to kind of get to know you a little bit. So you mentioned some things to me about what kind of led you to a healthy alternative, how you found the group and the YouTube in the first place. I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit of the beginning of your journey, where you kind of were mentally when you kind of started looking to become healthier, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so I would say the change that happened was right around the time that I was going through a divorce. I was living in North Carolina, and I had been with my husband then for about 5 years. And all of a sudden, I realized that everything that I thought was reality in that marriage was not. And whenever something like that happens in your life, where everything you thought was true turned out to not be, it does something to your psyche where all of a sudden you end up questioning everything. And if you take it the way that I took it, where I wasn't questioning and necessarily angry, but I was questioning in the sense of, if I had just trusted myself, I wouldn't be in this place to begin with. And so I just started questioning, does this resonate with me? Does that person resonate with me? Does this food resonate with me? And that took me on, that was in 2010, and that took me up until current time. So going on 9 years of figuring out what life looks like for Stephanie, not what life looks like in the opinions of other people.
Right.
And so at that time, I had started focusing on my mental health and my emotional health with little bits of spiritual health mixed in, just because I compartmentalize and I'm very structured and ordered. And I like to say, this is what I'm going to focus on now, and then we'll go to this. And so I started with my mental and emotional health, and then as the years progressed and my mental and emotional health got better and my spiritual health was better, I started caring more about what I was putting into my body and what sort of foods I was feeding it. It became more of a feeding this vessel than it was eating out of habit to eat. And so earlier this year, I had a couple health issues, but that wasn't really necessarily what brought me to fasting. It was a spiritual exploration. I had been looking at the topic of breatharianism. It had popped up on my radar probably 3 years ago during a colon cleanse that I was doing. And I just felt so good at the time that I thought to myself, well, why do I have to go back to eating? I mean, if I feel this good right now, why would I go back? And so, of course, I brought it up to my partner at the time, and of course it scared him, and he was like, no, you have to eat.
Right.
And so I was like, well, you know what? This just isn't the time in my life to consider the possibility of evolving human beings actually need physical food. So I went back to eating, but tried to keep more of a clean approach to it. And it was probably 3 years ago, 2.5-ish, whenever I felt a very strong urge in my body to eliminate animal products. And I work as an intuitive or psychic healer, whatever word people prefer or resonate with. And I was doing readings for people and finding that I did not feel good in my body, nor did I feel clear to do the work I was doing with dead animal flesh in my belly. So I decided to take it out and see if that kind of fixed the problem and if I felt like I was having more of a connection. So that helped, and that was part of my health experience. And then this year, whenever I decided to start fasting, I was looking at the breatharian stuff, and I think I had started a fast with no intention of stopping or starting or stopping like a time frame. Like I just was going to do it and see what happened. Because I feel like the best way to understand our bodies is to use our bodies, and to question our bodies and to question, the status quo. And so I just thought to myself, I'm going to do a water fast and we'll just see what happens. And while I was looking up YouTube videos and getting inspiration and information to support me along this experience, I came across a healthy alternative. And I resonated with a lot of the things that you were talking about and your personality in general. And so that's whenever I didn't have Facebook at the time because I had gone on about an 8 or 9 month hiatus from the beginning of this year from Facebook. And I'm pretty sure the only reason I rejoined was so I could get into the Healthy Alternative group. And so it's been amazing. And that's kind of what's brought me up until current time most recently.
Nice. I'm really happy that we did this because it gives us an opportunity to see the journey start from a different perspective. Because usually, I think pretty much everybody that I've interviewed so far has started their journey from a health or a physical standpoint, and you started from a mental standpoint, which is huge because even when you're looking to heal your physical body, you always got to start with the mental. It's always a decision to either want to do better, live better. There's always that mental, that clarity that comes before the physical action. So I think that's very interesting. And I wanted to just briefly go back for half a second so that people are, they're not confused. What exactly is breatharian? Like, what is that lifestyle like?
Okay, so breatharianism is different for everyone who uses the term, just like fasting. Just like, if you go into the Healthy Alternative Facebook group and you're looking at people talking about their fasts, not everybody is doing just dry or just water. Some people do coffee and water. Some people are weaning themselves off of certain addictions. Some people have a certain approach whenever they refeed. Everybody has these different little quirks that makes their experience unique. Mm-hmm. So same can be said for breatharianism. It does not necessarily mean that people don't eat, don't drink, and just live off of breath.
Right.
However, the general basis for breatharianism is that you are changing your body's primary source of fuel from physical food to non-physical sustenance.
Okay.
Whether that is mental, emotional, spiritual, prana, or chi. So some people who use the term breatharian, they are truly practicing fasting, but with a more spiritual approach. Whereas others that I have seen have a much more, I don't even know the word to use, they have a much more no food policy that works.
It's like a more strict approach.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing. Well, it's interesting because I think that as I said, it varies so much. So I've seen a lot of different people's experiences with it. But for one thing is for sure, people who are even called, and I think this can be said the same for fasting, people who are called in that direction, even if they're doing it for health, they're really answering a call that's much deeper And they just may not know yet that that call is going to lead them to that deeper discovery of themselves.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting because throughout this whole journey for me, I actually came across breatharians. There's one that I follow on Facebook, but of course, I was like anybody else. I'm like, yo, this isn't how is this even possible? And it's kind of the same reaction people have with fasting because they're very closely related. I mean, if you could go 90 days without eating, then, it's kind of the same as like just not eating at all. I mean, it's like, we talk about having all these reserves, mineral reserves and vitamin reserves and all this stuff. But um, in my research, I found that the body actually has the ability to manufacture the nutrients that it needs utilizing the sun, which I've talked about many times. And, a lot of people get very, I don't know. They'll be like, oh, Chris, I was with you until you started talking about that. I'm like, okay, well, how do plants, produce their fruit? It's not
Yeah.
so far-fetched. Like,
Yeah.
We've been taught that plants get nutrients from the soil, but we all know you could grow a plant in water. So, the whole micronutrient thing is, in my opinion, it's pseudoscience. And so, and I've seen many studies, concerning like the micronutrients and things that pretty much point to the fact that the plant's not taking anything from the soil. We don't see depressions in the ground when large oak trees, are there. There's no depressions where you could see that the soil's been absorbed. And they're getting their energy from the sun. They have the ability to condense sunlight into, nutrition. But I think that in our modern society, because of all of the toxins and all of the mental stressors, our bodies don't function in a way that's conducive to living that lifestyle. And so it's a very huge mental change you have to make. And you also might have to actually live in a place where your air isn't so toxic and, polluted.
Yeah. Do those places exist now?
They definitely exist. They definitely exist.
Yeah, I think it's my personal understanding that the science and knowledge and awareness that we have available to us now as a whole is what we have now. And it's what we believe in. And so therefore our bodies mirror our beliefs. It's my understanding that it is possible, and it may be who knows how many years down the road, but it is possible that as our beliefs and possibilities change, our bodies will change to reflect that. And so I do truly believe that an evolved species of humans are capable of consuming other things for nourishment than physical food.
That's very, very interesting. I like the way you put that. Okay, so you ran across the channel and now you're in a healthy alternative. So let's talk about some of, outside of the mental healing and emotional healing that you desired, let's talk about some of the physical things that you were looking to see happen.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, so whenever, like I said, at the beginning of this year, I had some physical stuff going on, and that wasn't why I started fasting. But at the same time, being a scientist of my own body, I was interested to see what fasting would do for those physical issues. And so at the beginning of the year, I had a really stressful event occur and that I had to deal with. And as a result of that stress, I started having heart palpitations. And at first I was just thinking to myself, well, that's weird. I must have a muscle twitch, until I could not ignore the fact that it was not muscular. It was, I mean, the heart is muscle, but you know what I mean? It was coming from my heart.
Right.
And so at that time, I got a doctor's appointment, which I don't see doctors. I don't have insurance. I address what needs to be addressed on my own through my own research and education and self-awareness and intuition. So I decided to go to a doctor though, because I wanted the blood work. I'm like, I'm going to add this physical aspect to the knowledge I have. And so I went and had my blood work. I was weighing in at 310, 15, somewhere around there. And my blood work came back perfect, except for low vitamin D.
Okay.
And I found that really interesting because I never thought, I never even considered the fact that maybe I had low vitamin D. And so I started the fast, and my first fast was 14 days. I experienced a lot of the lightheadedness and dizziness if I stood up too quickly. But other than that, I felt extremely mentally and emotionally clear. And I really appreciated that because I knew exactly what I wanted. And there was no interference or static between my brain and my body. The heart palpitations continued through that fast. And with each consecutive fast, the heart palpitations have become less and less and less until this last fast, I don't remember having any.
Wow.
And that was really big to me because I am, like I said, I like to experiment. And so I took notes during each fast of what I did, what I didn't do, because I knew I would want to look back on that information and have it as a resource. So I think, so heart palpitations stopping, blood pressure was a tiny bit high whenever I went into the doctors, but that could have just been the white coat thing.
Yeah.
My blood pressure now is completely normal and has been throughout my fasts. My first fast was 14 days water, and it included 3 days dry consecutive. My second fast was 18 days, and I don't believe I did any dry that time. My third was 10-day water, and my fourth was 20-day water. And the 10-day had 3 days of dry again. And then I just today ended a 3-day dry consecutive.
Yeah, those dry fasts are nice once you start getting into them.
Yeah.
I waited a long time before I introduced it to the group because when I was researching with water fasting was really, really simple, really, really easy, not too many complications, not too much you can really mess up on. But with the dry fasting, I saw some stories about, how people broke their dry fast and caused their self-harm and things like that. So I was really kind of iffy about introducing it. But the group's done very well with it. And obviously, if you're going to do dry fasting, you want to make sure you understand that process well. That's with any process as far as fasting goes. So it's interesting about I thought you were going to say iron. They tell everybody that they're iron deficient. I think especially women. It's like, oh yeah, you're anemic. And I'm not really sure what that's all about because, my mom was anemic and she took iron pills for a long time, and I don't think the pills never worked. So I don't know what's going on with that. But
and also I think that whenever I Googled it for what it's worth, most people are vitamin D deficient. And of course, that goes with saying that we are judging deficiencies based on a number that is not even the same all the way across the board, depending on the health practitioner you're talking to.
Right.
So I think that's important to acknowledge. But at the same time, for me, the way that my brain operates is that, okay, well, D is associated with sun. And so I can get out. I could take a supplement if I want. I could also just focus on bringing more joy into my life and lightness and brightness into my life, because I like to look at things on what does a physical thing, what is a mental and an emotional representation of vitamin D, and then adding more of that into my experience. So I have not had it tested again. And I may, once I get to my goal weight, I may go back and just have a whole new panel done to see, what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's an interesting way to look at it. How you kind of talked about visualizing what that nutrient or that vitamin is, and bringing more of that into your life in a mental capacity. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. And I agree. I think the body is amazing, and it's capable of all sorts of things. You're definitely on another level, and I think that's something that's a good experiment to try. I love the way that you record everything. And what I was going to say with the vitamin D, yeah, I think getting out in the sun is probably one of the best ways to get vitamin D. But vitamin D is it's much more than just vitamin D. I think our current understanding of vitamin D is very limited. And like you said, the numbers change across the board. So it's like, how do we even take these numbers seriously? If you could, like with diabetes, you could be a diabetic here in America, go to Canada, and you're not a diabetic based on their test. So it's like, so am I not?
Yeah.
I think how you feel is a better indicator, and not just how you feel, but you need to obviously be in tune with your body first. And then you can really judge how you feel as a good indicator of how healthy you are. With the heart palpitations, I actually had those too. Mine were weird. I don't really know how to even describe it. Besides, it just felt my heartbeat would be irregular sometimes, and it was something that probably happened to me started probably about 5 years ago, something like that, and then up until when I kind of started fasting for the first time, it finally went away. But I noticed that when I would fast, it would get like more excessive, like it was very, very noticeable. And then when I'll come off the fast, my heartbeat would be really, really like normal. And then after I fasted for so many times, just being consistent with it, kind of like with you, it just went away completely.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you if you're taking anything with your water, or like when you're doing a water fast, is it pure water? Because a lot of people talk about needing electrolytes because they're experiencing those irregular heartbeats and things of that nature. And I'm just curious what your experience has been with that.
Yeah, so I tested it. Out of the 5 fasts that I've done now, one fast, the 20-day one, I added trace mineral drops to my water the first week, and then I did not add them for the second 2 weeks. I could tell absolutely no difference in the symptoms. All the symptoms I had were very similar to symptoms that I have always had. My very first fast, I had extreme shoulder tension. It was tons. Never had that again after that first time. My first fast, I had leg, like calf tightness, not cramping, just tightness and general soreness. And that has continued through every single fast except for the 3-day dry I just did. But it decreases.
Okay.
Less tightness, less tightness, less tightness. The heart palpitations, nothing changed with those the week that I took the trace minerals. And at that point, most of the palpitations were completely gone while I was fasting anyway. So I have these trace minerals, and it's a great product, but I don't think that it's necessary for everyone. However, I will say that what you believe about your experience is going to have a much larger impact on you than what somebody else says is true. Because if you believe you can't make it through without your coffee, without your drops, without your bone broth, without your whatever, then you are not, because you're going to create a block mentally, and you're going to frustrate yourself, and then you're going to fail. You're going to fall off. So even though I personally don't think that even for myself, I don't think that they're necessary, and that's based off of actual experimenting with my body. I'm not going to negate the necessity of them for somebody else who believes they need them.
Yeah, that's a extremely good point because, um, I'm not like if someone asks me my opinion, I'm going to give them my opinion. I'm going to give
Yeah.
them based on my experiences and what I've seen, just the realest information that I have. But what I found is exactly what you said. Regardless, if people think, oh, I need this, or oh, this makes it easier for me, and if that helps your fast to be successful, then by all means go for it.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean. At the end of the day, I would much rather you put some trace minerals in the water and
And do
complete
it.
right than to be like, I can't do it. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
So that's a really good observation. I
I
will.
will also say on that same train of thought, I refeed very differently than I have seen a lot of people refeed, and I put electrolyte rich juices and foods like lemon juice, key lime juice, oranges into my system first
Mm-hmm.
before stuffing it full of a bunch of other things. So
Right.
just in case, in the possibility that my body has utilized what it has and is in the process of making more, I want to flood my system with life
Right.
and encourage it to do what it's doing. It kind of like just like sending a reinforcement in.
Yeah. And I've said that before because I'm like, look, if your concern is that you feel like you're going to become depleted, right? Because that's what science says, is you're going to become depleted. You can always have your electrolytes after the fast. I
Yeah.
mean, because here's my thing, and here's the reason why I'm like, I really don't want anybody putting things in their water. What I have seen is over long periods of time fasting, people can potentially have issues, nothing major and nothing like permanent, but like with loose skin. What I've seen is that people who utilize, some of these electrolyte drinks the entire time, like that's all they fast with, they tend to see a lot more loose skin than someone who does the pure water fasting. And of course, there's many factors that kind of determine whether you see any loose skin at all during your fast, what you kind of feel like what loose skin actually is. I mean, there's all these different ideas about loose skin, but when I think of loose skin, I think of being able to, pinch your arm and pull 4, 5, 7 inches off your arm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to see that more often with people who fast with those things. And I believe that's the reason for that is because when you're putting that stuff in your body, if number one, if it's not coming from a source that's alive, like you mentioned, orange juice or something like that, it's actually disrupting the healing process to some degree. So,
Yes.
if you're going to be using electrolytes and things like, and I tell people all the time, hey, if you want something, use fresh squeezed juice. That's my suggestion. I think that it is more optimal than creating these drinks with the different salts and the different products. That's just
Yeah.
my opinion on it. But I never tell anybody, hey, you got to do it this way, because either way it goes, if you're doing it, it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think the awareness of health is not linear. Sometimes we jump way ahead and then backtrack to realize things that we were unaware of that we needed to know to get where we're going.
Yeah.
And so I know I've done a juice fast before, and I didn't know then, because I didn't know what I know now,
Right.
that I would have just done the water, because
Right.
it gave me so much more. But that is within my experience, and I have the ability to work from home. And so
Right.
people who are going out and working, maybe they need green juice, or maybe they need this or that. I have, in the discovery of my own uniqueness, I have slowly but surely grown my compassion for the differing places that we all are starting from whenever we come to our health journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's kind of the fun part about my job is I get to ask a lot of people questions. I get to hear a lot of their experiences and, the uniqueness of everybody's experience. And, sometimes it's better not to say that a juice fast is necessarily more potent, but sometimes it is better for an individual to juice fast versus water fasting based on their, their
where they're
situation.
coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually really, really excited to see that juice fasting did manufacture some different results for me, because I had never really tried it. Yeah, I never had really tried it until this past summer. And what I noticed, and I think it might be because of the fruit juice that I chose, and the more acidic fruit juice, but my digestion improved tremendously from doing my juice fast. So
Nice.
yeah, I mean, I think there's benefits to everything. And
Well, and the understanding and awareness that is starting to grow within the medical field of our microbiome, I could totally see how giving your body fresh fruits, the tiny bit of fiber that slips through,
right.
even with juices, feeding all of that good gut bacteria, it's pretty amazing how much of our health originates in our gut and how much of it originates with the little bacteria that live inside of us, whether it's good bacteria, not good, parasites. So I think anything that is bringing people to question what they're putting in their mouths, whether it's juice, whether it's water, whether it's dry, whether it's whatever, is a good progression.
Right. Yeah, we need to be more aware of ourselves. And golly, like, my biggest thing is I'm people are so funny. They'll be like, I was with you until you started talking about this highly restrictive diet. And I'm like, I don't talk about a highly restrictive diet. I talk about making changes to your diet. First of all, understanding the foods you're putting in your mouth. Because it's like, who says, man, this diet that you're telling me about is really, really restrictive. Like, I miss all the poisons I put in my mouth. Like, nobody would ever say that. So if you understood that the foods you're putting in your mouth were poison, you would never say, man, this highly poison restrictive diet, I don't like it. You know what I mean? I enjoy my poisonous foods. So I'm just trying to make people aware of the foods they're putting in so that you can have an informed decision. If you want to put Oreos and soda and stuff in your body, and you understand truly understand how detrimental it is, I'm okay with that. Please feel free, do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 points for me within what you just said. One is that evolution that I was talking about earlier, and one is relationship. And as humans, as we evolve, that is going to look strange at times, and sometimes it may not even be noticeable to the physical eye. But as you evolve, you will begin to question and to have these desires to understand what you're doing. Essentially, you will have a desire to have more sovereignty over your being and more authenticity within your expression of that being. And I think the natural progression in that evolution is to look at responsibility. And even though it's not completely fasting or food related, our personal responsibility on this planet and our collective accountability to each other has been silenced for so long because it serves corporate greed.
Right.
For us not to take responsibility for ourselves, for us not to care about how our actions impact those around us and the world as a whole. So food relationship is part of that evolution and part of that personal responsibility. And saying to yourself, everything I do impacts not only me, but everyone else on this planet. And as people start to understand that and they start to question what they're doing, they will start to question the food they're putting in their body, and ultimately will come to the realization that in order to live, you feed yourself life.
Right.
In order to die, you feed yourself death.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, even though that sounds very harsh and people will feel combative at that, if you truly sit with it and feel it within yourself, it makes more sense than anything ever has.
I definitely agree with that. And it's interesting because throughout this entire journey, I mean, there's so many things I wasn't aware of, but just literally, like you said, as you're kind of going through this journey, you become aware of your purpose and how you affect others and everything. It's something that just wakes up inside you. And I'm really happy that I've gone through this process, because it makes everything so much, like dieting, like just dieting, like let's say you want to diet to lose weight and you don't have this clarity, you don't have all the other things that come along when you go through this process of fasting and getting to know yourself. It's super hard because you just don't, it's like, man, I just want to eat this stuff. You have all the cravings and you don't have that perspective. So that's really, really important.
I think part of it too is that for so long, whenever dieting became something that corporations could make money from, the word diet stopped meaning what you eat, and it started meaning what you don't eat in order to lose weight.
Right.
And I use the word diet all the time, and I use it because I know people have a stigma around it. And I want people to understand that the word diet means the foods that consist of what you eat. It's only because someone could make money off of it that dieting became a word that has negative energy around it.
Right. Very, very good point. I observed that as well. And it's, manipulation that they do when they're trying to sell us a product. The nutritional industry, I've talked about this before. The nutritional industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I don't think people really understand that. And in order for you to have this is one of a very largely successful business or industry. You have to have products and services that are reoccurring, right? It can't be a one and done deal. So what does that mean? It means I have to give you a product that you have to keep coming back for. Mm-hmm. And so as it relates to health, if you're taking these products and you have to keep coming back for them, let's just use the example I used earlier, my mom's iron pills. If you have to keep taking them in order to, I don't know, whatever, feel better, not be as sleepy, then they're not working, because the idea of healing is, and especially if you're talking about a product, you should be able to take this product, it should be able to generate some type of change in your body so that the natural systems kick back on, and then boom, you're done. You don't need it,
Mm-hmm. That's how I feel about, and let me say first that I feel what you're saying, and I want to add, for anyone who's listening and feels judged because they're unaware of the wool that has been pulled over all of our eyes, is that it takes strength and courage and being uncomfortable at times and letting go of your fears to truly see that there are people who view you as a wallet and not a human being.
Right.
And it is hard. It is hard whenever we want to be loved in this human experience. It is hard and almost impossible for people to consider the worst possibility.
Right.
And so it's okay if there are people that are listening that, that's just somewhere they can't go because it hurts too much to consider. That's okay. I find that it is the more warrior-esque and those who like to challenge the status quo that are happier going in that direction. And that's good, because here we are, and we bring that information for other people so they don't have to dive into it. They don't have to have their hearts broken open. They can just start taking care of themselves.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. We're all such unique individuals. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, and that creates balance, which is super important. Like our entire reality is all about balance. So, yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why I started a healthy alternative, because I was learning all of this horrific stuff, right? And but I was also learning a lot of truth, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I love the journey. And I know that there's other people who they just don't want to get into all of that. They just want the solution. And so
Yeah.
I was happy to be able to kind of dissect it all and present it in a manner that was easily digestible for other individuals. And for those who wanted to dive deep, I mean, I touch on a lot of things. Like, for example, somebody might be listening to this interview and be like, well, what is breatharian?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and then they can go and dive deep on it. But yeah, that's a great point to make. So
yeah, I think that we all have our strengths. And if we all take responsibility for ourselves, we will ultimately learn what those strengths are. And that's how you contribute to the whole. And so we like to dissect. I love to dissect. I love to look in the dark corners that other people don't want to look into. And so then I get to bring what I learned back into the light for other people to benefit from.
Right. And it's like, I think it's so dope because you can literally tell people where the potholes is. Like, hey, look out for that pothole. Look,
yeah.
Like when I was going through my health journey, one of the first things that I got caught up in was because water is huge, right? It's a huge part of it. I got caught up in all the different types of waters. And even now, there's still so much debate about what's the best water to drink, what's the purest form of water, blah, blah, blah. But I started buying that alkaline water. And then I started learning, they're chemically alkalizing the water, which is different from if you sun energize and alkalize the water.
Yeah.
It's like a completely, and then you start learning about how the molecular structure of the water changes. And so I'm like, yo, you know what? Don't waste your money on that alkalizing water, because these companies are chemically alkalizing the water, and that may not be what you're looking for. Hey, the sun, if the sun does the same thing, it's got to be better. Like, it has to be better, you know? So I was curious, because you had mentioned that you have a weight loss goal in mind. And I know that you mentioned to me earlier that you had started off, at least as far as the fasting and stuff go, you had started off and you were like around 315. With all of the fasting that you've done currently, where are you sitting? And then what's your goal for the weight loss?
So I'm at 230. So that is an 85-pound loss.
Wow.
When was it? I have it written down in my handy dandy.
Yeah. Check that out.
It's because I'm so organized. I like this. My very first fast was May 21st. So it wasn't even the beginning of this year. It was the end of May. Yeah. And so my goal is to have lost all of my weight within 1 year. So 140 pounds. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So
you're well on your way.
Yeah. So I'm at 85 pounds lost right now. And that's at 230. My goal is to be under 200 by January 31st. And that will put me at like a 30-pound range. I'm 5'9", and I have a large build.
Right.
So I am thinking somewhere between 170 and 180 muscular will be my end spot. So I plan on getting somewhere around 185-ish, and then I will significantly reduce the fasting, maybe do 1 day a week or 2 days a week max water fast, and then seriously up the interval training and weight training. That's the loose plan.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's cool to have the loose plan because, it gives you some direction.
Yeah.
For me, obviously, I mentioned this many times. Weight loss was never on the. It was just I was definitely the shape of my body was definitely not good. I've got a video that I put out probably a year ago now, where I talk about where I started off, and I show the pictures, and people at that time, even people be like, "Oh, you're skinny." I'm like, y'all don't understand. Like, I'm not skinny. I'm skinny fat. That's what I
And that's along the same lines as the diet conversation. Is people think that if you are skinny, then you are healthy.
Right.
And that's one of those things that we have to question. We have to question the words that we're using to describe our experience. And we have to question the pictures that have been put in front of us,
right,
being sold as healthy, whole, happy. Those are pictures of someone who's being paid
right,
to represent a word. They're not truth for all of us, So I think that's another way that we can evolve for ourselves, is by questioning how we judge other people by how we see them.
Exactly. Yeah. Man, I am so much healthier now, and I am much smaller. I tell people this, I've lost 90 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was already skinny, right? Slim to begin with. I've gained, since my last fast, I probably gained about 10 pounds back. But I lost 90 pounds. But my thing is, I'm like, well, shoot, I'll just, I'll let my body do what it does, and then I'll kind of build back up. So that's kind of like my goal, is to build back up. And then also I'm thinking about doing a juice fast, a really, really long juice fast, where because usually when I do my juice fast, I'll do like a water fast and then just supplement with juice. But this time around, I want to do like a hardcore like juice fast, where I'm drinking, almost a gallon of juice a day, where, I'm not going to see a lot of weight loss, because what I really want to do is work out and build the muscle and maintain it while I do this fast. So really what it is I'm just taking a break from solid foods, which is also very beneficial. It doesn't have to necessarily be a water fast. If you do soups or juice and just things like that, that's still very beneficial. So that's something for,
I think that, there we go. The screen froze. Sorry, can you repeat what you were just saying about the juice fast? That you said that it was very important to give your body a break from digesting.
Yeah, well, just to give your body a break from solid foods.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Because your body can digest juice much easier, or soup much easier than it can, a Snickers bar, which is super complex. And so because our bodies are so wonderfully designed, you can just drink like a gallon of juice a day. You still see major health benefits. So, and I want to explore that. And I want to see, but also at the same time, maintain whatever physique that I've attained by that time. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think that a thought that I like to hold for myself is that sometimes humans have to be ahead of science. The only way that we will evolve is by seeing and experimenting and experiencing. It just so happens that a lot of that experimenting and experiencing happens in labs somewhere, and evolution is considered very slow. There are times, though, that I feel, especially now and going forward in the future, where if you're tired of waiting on science to evolve, you can evolve yourself. Absolutely. And you can be the science, even if people say it's impossible. Our bodies are, as you said, incredibly designed and incredibly adaptable. There's no reason you need 50 extra pounds of muscle on you. We have, again, this image of health that is portrayed to us based on this huge muscular man who has his six-pack and who's about to go chase a bear for his evening dinner. That's just not happening anymore. Like, why do we need to all look a certain way whenever our lifestyles are all so very, very different, and very different than caveman times. You know,
Right.
this idea of, well, my ancestors did it this way, they look this way. Well, one, you don't actually know how they look because you weren't there. But two, we are not our ancestors. It doesn't matter what topic you're talking about. Whatever you choose for yourself, do it because it is right for you,
Right.
not because somebody else supposedly did it and you read about it in a textbook.
Right. I hate going to the gym. I'm not a gym person.
I'm not a fan either.
I feel like the gym is an unnatural practice in the sense that who goes to a place just to build muscle? Typically, you would build muscle because we're out in the world experiencing life, and we're climbing mountains, and we're putting together tools and whatever. I mean, just working in the field, or whatever you're doing, you kind of build muscle naturally. So I just and obviously, I think, like you mentioned, our world is completely different from it has been in the past. So the gym has been, a place where we can kind of get that exercise that we don't get in our natural life anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge for me to go. So, but I think I'm going to start doing like calisthenics. I think calisthenics might resonate with me a little bit. I've never tried it before, but I do like push-ups, curls, and stuff at home. But I think I'm going to go that route this time around. I still got my gym membership. We'll see. I'll probably get up in there a couple times to lift heavy a little bit. But
yeah, I also think that just as you and I like to experiment on ourselves, there are those who gain muscle just to see what their body is capable of. And I'd like to think that that's the majority, that they're all in there experimenting and really having their own experience, and that it's not something that they feel like they have to do to look a certain way to get the guys, to get the girls, to get the whoever's,
right.
To get the health. But I'm not a pessimist and I'm not necessarily an optimist, but I like to think that there are those who are just like we are, experimenting with their bodies to see what is possible.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I don't want to try to speak for anybody, but I would think that makes sense. I've heard people definitely talk about that. So, and I think it depends too. Like, what do you want? That's a really, really good question for you ask yourself is, what's your goal? What do you really want? And it's not something that, it's something you probably need to sit with for a while. But like for me, what I want and the way I teach and present information is I want optimal health. But I do understand that that's a journey. I think it's really dangerous to try to be like, I want optimal health. I want it right now. And if somebody could tell me A, B, C, D, E, how to get to optimal health, I'm going to do it.
Well, and that thinking is linear and finite. And if you're searching for optimal health, that optimal health is infinite, because as you grow and expand, your health possibilities, capabilities grow and expand. So there is no ideal, because that ideal is always changing.
Oh, yeah, very true. The goal's always moving.
Yeah, which I think it is much needed medicine for humans at this time, because in so many other aspects of our life, there are goals and carrots dangled in front of our faces. And so to release yourself from those restraints of getting that carrot by saying to yourself, as long as I'm growing, there is no end goal. There is no carrot. There are successes and wins and treats along the way, but this is a constantly ever spiraling experience, not a finite linear experience.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I really enjoyed talking to you. You added a lot of depth to the conversation, and I really hope people get something unique out of this. I feel like I have. I love the way that you kind of worded some of the things, and it's been very enjoyable. I guess that we've already kind of talked about you know, what are your goals and where you want to go in the future. Was there anything else that you wanted to kind of, any little nuggets you want to leave either for people who are, you know, just brand new to the idea of fasting, or, you know, changing their health, evolving their mental state?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things to say, and I don't know if some famous person has quoted this or not, not that I'm aware, but one of my things that I try to remind myself of is I cannot solve or fix or address a problem with the same mindset that created the problem. So if you are trying to heal yourself, whether it's health related or not, anything in your life, if you feel like it's not working, the mindset that got you in that to begin with it can't be the mindset to free you. It can't. And so with fasting, with relationships, with work, with whatever, if you are going to see yourself through to a new experience and out of the old one, you have to change how you see it and what you believe about it and the self-talk you create around it. So whenever I fast, I try, even though of course it doesn't happen all the time, because I'm essentially asking my future healthiest self to choose my fasts for me, to choose my food for me. And this current Stephanie sometimes wins. But as long as I'm thinking to myself, what would she do?
Right.
What would that Stephanie look like? Who would she hang out with? What would she eat? What would she drink? As long as I am giving myself mental permission to exist as something other than what I am right now, I have possibility for growth.
Wow.
So the only other little things, I have like little nuggets that I wrote in my journal. Let's see. By the way, my first fast resulted in me quitting my job. I mean, there's that.
Oh, wow. That's a new one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a new one.
Well, as I said before, I'm very spiritually aware of what I want for myself. And for 10 years, I've been a massage therapist with intuitive psychic healing on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally got to the point where I knew that the changes I was about to make in my life were going to ripple into every aspect where unhappiness resided.
Wow.
And so I was unhappy continuing the massage work, and I knew I had to let go and take that leap. And I used fasting as my excuse to do it and to just take the leap and to go fully into the readings and the intuitive work. And I mean, here we are months later and it's working.
You survived. You survived. It's basically,
I did survive.
Yeah.
We will all survive the leaps.
Yes.
We just have to completely change the reality of what we believe is possible.
Beautiful.
So one other little nugget that I'd written down, I don't remember why I wrote these down, but I'll share them. Every desire outside of yourself takes you away from yourself. Love of God in with the breath, fear of self out, and that God can be whatever your definition of God or spirit or creator or collective is.
Right.
But I thought that was a really good breath practice. Love of God in and fear of self out, because I do find that it's often our fear of ourself, how we appear, the things we think, what we find is possible. It's fear that stops us from creating unimaginable possibilities.
Agreed.
And I think that was it. The only other thing that I would add is that, like you want to do the juice fast. I think like a prolonged one. I think in the future I may add an herbal infusion fast.
Okay.
I don't know if you have much experience with herbal infusions, but red raspberry leaf, oat straw, nettles, a lot of different ones have so many nutrients in them.
Mm-hmm.
And herbs a lot of times can be foraged. It takes very little, it takes a little bit of research and understanding and education. But once you learn how to feed yourself from the earth, it's so possible to have a symbiotic, healthy relationship that sustains your body as well as this earth body that supports us. So I think in the future I may do like a week of herbal infusions only, primarily nettle and some oat straw. So that may be in the works as well.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I could see that being extremely beneficial.
Yeah. I like to break fasts sometimes, especially long fasts. I will break with nettle infusions.
Yeah. Is that a warm? Is that a warm or is that a cold drink?
So what it is, it's very similar to a tea, but whereas tea is only steeped for a short period of time, with a little bit of herb. I'm looking down because my herbs are over there. Infusions, you take about a cup of herb, and you put it in a 32 ounce, so a 4-cup mason jar. You pour your boiling water over, you close it, and you leave it overnight. And so that way it's a very nutrient dense concentration of the nutrient profile that plant has to offer.
Gotcha. Yeah, 100%. That sounds amazing. So you definitely dropped some nuggets there, and I agree with pretty much everything you said. So I really enjoyed speaking to you. I hope that everyone that's watching got something really great out of this, something unique. It inspires someone. And we'll be doing more interviews like this in the future. So make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel. Make sure that you hit the notification bell. If you enjoyed this video, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. And like I said, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. And as always, the application of knowledge is power. And we will see you guys next time.